Ultimately, the impulse was my love of musical theater,
Yes.
and within that there were, I think, multiple things that are happening in terms of why I wanted to write the book. One of the major things is where I hope the form is going, and in terms of the future. As I say in the book, history is not just facts and figures. It is prospects and possibilities.
Yes.
And there is so much to be mined in actually understanding what happened. I think that is a large piece that is missing right now, has been
Yes.
missing for several decades. I am one of those people that miss that. I don't, prior to this journey, I didn't really understand that.
Hi, Michael McElroy here. I am a founding member of Black Theater United, and we are here at the Bruno Walter Auditorium at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. And what better place to be able to be in this conversation about this incredible book, The American Musical, Evolution of an Art Form, than with the writer himself, Mr. Ben West. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited. This book, it's been a long time coming. We started talking about this book pre-COVID.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what was the impulse to write it for you?
Ultimately, the impulse was my love of musical theater,
Yes.
and within that there were, I think, multiple things that are happening in terms of why I wanted to write the book. One of the major things is where I hope the form is going, and in terms of the future, and this idea of past, present, and future, and there being a connection between those aspects. And I will say, underlying that, for me, and in terms of what I'm aware of, there has not really been, or we don't really have, a history, be it book or documentary, that is comprehensive, accurate, and practical in nature. So that's what I have endeavored to create in the book. And I'll say, in terms of the comprehensive piece, it is this idea of really looking at how the art form evolved, which is not exclusive, as we were talking about, to the legitimate stage.
Right.
So we have, we think of the American musical, or I should say, the American musical that we think of now is something that matured mid-20th century. And its maturation, or the development to that point, as you well know, is not exclusive to legit being plays and musicals.
Right.
And so what I have included in the book and really dissected and was very interested to uncover is the influences of minstrelsy, burlesque, nightclubs, vaudeville in particular. And so all of those, what I call outside influences, are, as you know, heavily addressed in the book, and really feed into what we understand as the American musical. And I will say, this is something for me that I learned in this process when I started doing the research in 2014, which was even longer ago than when we started speaking. I had always been interested in the history of the form, and to the extent of knowing older shows, like mid-20th century shows, lesser known artists, and that's what my early focus really was. And yet, what I was discovering in the work that I was doing is that I didn't even really, at that time, myself understand the actual evolution of the form. And I think this is something that is widely missing in our industry, in terms of an actual foundational knowledge of what is this form, how did it evolve, and then within that, this idea of practical that I mentioned. There is this connection between past, present, and future, and I'm a firm believer of we must know from whence we came in order to make conscious decisions going forward. And so this understanding of the evolution can only enhance the work that's being done today, that will be done in future, because there is this art of musical storytelling that really matured, that is firmly established mid-20th century.
Yeah. You're saying all these things that are like, I'm going, yes. I mean, this idea of understanding your past so you actually know where you are on the continuum. Like, what did I learn from that, and where am I in moving something forward? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you, I mean, this is the big, it's not, as I say in the book, history is not just facts and figures. It is prospects and possibilities.
Yes.
And there is so much to be mined in actually understanding what happened. And I think that is a large piece that is missing right now, has been missing for several decades, that we don't, and I am one of those people that miss that. I don't, prior to this journey, I didn't really understand that. Evolution of this form is so complex. It's not it's not this linear thing. Burlesque feeds into it, vaudeville feeds into it. There is a concerted effort among a large swath of artists up to and including the 1960s to better what we understand as musical storytelling. And so it is, I think, so crucial to anyone who is making musicals today and future to really understand what's here, because we can pull from it, we can understand. There are techniques, there are tools, there are things we can use, and there's not one, as I say in the book as well, there's not one way to make a musical, and there's not a limit to the stories one can tell, but there is this art to musical storytelling. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I also found really poignant and actually powerful for me was looking at, in this time in which we're living, there's an erasure or an appropriation or kind of a shifting of African American history or African American contributions across many different spaces, fields. And even from the cover of the book, as I'm reading, it is not a hard over the head kind of thing. It's just reinserting African American composers, librettists, lyricists, producers back into the narrative. And was that a conscious thing, or was that just in your research you started to go, oh, Bob Cole, the Johnson Brothers, and putting those in, was it a conscious thing?
I would say it's both. I mean, it was conscious in that, and this is what I mean about an accurate history, and a comprehensive history. So it's not, as you say, the intention is not to shoehorn these individuals in and say, oh, Bob Cole wrote a show, or Shuffle Along happened in 1921. I mean, both of those things are true, but they are both more than that. They are instrumental in this evolution. And with regard to women as well, I will add into that. There are women, and black women, in fact, in the book. Zora Neale Hurston has a show on Broadway in 1932. These are individuals who are part of maturing this particular art form. They are there, they are part of this history, and they are often overlooked, because what we have, and I don't know how this necessarily happened, but what we have ended up with over a period of several decades is superficial and celebrity histories. So we have these massive misperceptions about particularly this early period when we have a lot of black individuals working, a lot of women working, and a period in which these black artists are particularly instrumental in pushing forward sound, in pushing forward movement on stage. And then if you look at the sort of zoom out into the cultural and social relationship with the stage and the country, instrumental in amplifying black voices, black presence. Florence Mills in the 1920s talks about how the stage is and I'm butchering her quote, so please forgive me, Miss Mills. But she talks about something to the effect of the stage being the quickest way to the people, and the audience's predominantly white audience's perception of her makes them think better of other black people in the country. So there is this dynamic relationship that is going on, which is also part of this period. And so these individuals were very much there, were very active, and were making active contributions to the form. So this is what I mean in terms of accurate and comprehensive history, and we haven't really had that. I've tried to in the book to deliver that. Hopefully I've been successful in doing so. They are also incredibly important. And to the point about also, I will say, history being active and practical, even though a lot of these early individuals, Bob Cole you referenced, I'll mention Henry Creamer is a major black lyricist whose work is still done, by the way, After You've Gone, Way Down Yonder in New Orleans. I mean, major black lyricists. Even if their shows in their entirety, they are working in this primitive era, this early era. So the shows are necessarily ephemeral because the art form has not necessarily matured. But the contributions they are making are lasting. Right. And in terms of, again, going back to history being active and practical, even if we're not taking the show in its entirety, a lot of the contributions they're making, particularly in terms of musical style or how something moves, can be gleaned and utilized and can be incorporated or can inspire one's own work today, and certainly inspired this movement, or were part of the inspiration of this movement of bettering musical storytelling and the diversity of sound. And so it's just crucial to discuss these individuals if we're really going to look at this evolution and in context. Context is so crucial as well, which is what I have aimed to provide in this discussion.
Well, I think what's really great about what you're saying, there's a couple things, I have so many thoughts running through my head. One being this idea of musical theater being for and having a history that only centers one experience, when that's not true, it's not accurate. And we live in a time that's all about quick answers, what is
fast, the first?
Yes.
What is the best?
Right.
What is this?
Right. And making those, as opposed to the research and going back and really looking at, which is what's great why we're doing this at, the New York Public Library, for performing arts.
Which is an amazing resource. We should just plug that in.
Which is important because it is about being able to go back and learn, as opposed to that first choice of, this is what I think it is. Go back and look, and you might discover things that you didn't know that actually can influence you in a myriad of ways. So for you, this looking at these different art forms and how they were evolving really sets up for this art form that we know today as musical theater. When people are reading the book, what are some of the things that you want them to walk away with?
I think there are a number of things.
Yes.
And the book is for everyone, really. So from a artistic standpoint and from a creative standpoint, from people in the industry who I hope will read it, I hope there is a sense that excellence is possible, excellence in storytelling, and that really understanding this evolution can enhance the work that one is doing. So there's not a limit to the stories one can tell, but there is this foundational art to musical storytelling.
Yes.
And so I hope that will inspire excellence, because there is no shortage of talent today. I suspect there will be no shortage of talent tomorrow. But I think what is missing oftentimes is this connection to the past, is this understanding what is possible with regard to professionalism and excellence in crafting stories for the stage. For the stage, because the stage is an entirely different medium than concert, than film, than recording, than television, and it operates in a unique way that is not something that just happened yesterday. This is something that has evolved. So I do hope that is taken away in terms of the idea that excellence really is possible. Also in that vein, I will say an honoring and a recognition of the people who were so instrumental in creating this form. A lot of them are overlooked. Certainly black artists, but I would say there are white men who are overlooked as well, who, even though this is the bulk of what we understand, the Hammerstein, the Rogers, but there are folks as well like Arnold Horwood or Harold Rome, who were quite successful in their day, but lesser known now because their work was ephemeral in terms of review, especially for those who worked in review, which are topical entertainments. So this an understanding and acknowledgement of the artists and where we came, essentially. And I think then for artists and for also audiences, a context and a gravity to the form, because I take it seriously, and my approach to musical theater is very serious because it is high stakes. It has huge potential in terms of impacting what is happening socially, culturally, representation, which is a big focus today. And this goes back to the idea of excellence, and understanding that excellence is possible can only enhance the representation that we see, or the stories that one wants to tell. So, and understanding that this really is a serious form, and that people have taken it seriously, and there is a context to everything that has happened. So it's not that Showboat popped up out of nowhere. It's not that Oklahoma popped up out of nowhere. Oklahoma is not the first integrated book musical. There is a context, and so hopefully that will come across and be taken away, and so there is a greater appreciation for the form itself and for what is possible,
Right.
Regardless of what the story is. There can be rich, meaty, dramatic stories, and then there are stories that are comedic, and yet exceptionally well done. Funny thing happened on the way to the forum, Guys and Dolls. These are not shows that are dramatic,
Right.
probing pieces of searing social comment, and yet they are exquisitely crafted and brilliant pieces in the world that they create. So whatever one wants to see, or whatever one wants to write, if one is a writer, or direct if one is a director, there is an excellence that is possible in craft, and there's a lineage, and there is a history to this form, which can only inform what is happening now and in future.
That's great. So I just say, go out and get it. Ben West, The American Musical, Evolution of an Art Form. I think it should be taught at schools. I think a few of our folks out in the industry would benefit from understanding. And I think also just for me as a person, as an African-American artist, to go back and to be able to track and to see that there were artists at times evolving the art form, contributing to the art form in so many different ways that I didn't learn about until this book. And then being able to connect, not just in terms of African American contributions. I mean, going back and looking at people like Cole Porter, and when he was writing in the reviews, and as opposed to the musicals, when I'm looking back and going, oh, Johnson, one of the Johnson brothers, oh, he wrote Lift Up Your Voice and Sing. And being able to make those connections, once again, it's about looking at the history to understand where you are in that continuum. And so I think it's definitely a book for everyone to read, so please go out and read it, buy it, read it, and I look forward to many more conversations that I'm sure this book is going to make happen. So
I hope that would be amazing. Yeah, indeed.
Thank you. Alex Teplitsky for facilitating this here and having us here at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. I want to thank Ben West. I want to thank Suburban Photography, our videographers, Amanda and Jake. And Black Theater United is just about uplifting and celebrating Black artists and the work they're doing. So we wanted to celebrate this incredible piece of literature. Please go out and get it. And I look forward to more conversations about the book.
Indeed.